let me tell you something most people don't realize until it's too late. No one is coming to educate you anymore. Not your school, not your university, not your boss, not the system you were raised to trust. That system was built for a different time, a slower world, a world where information moved at a controlled pace and opportunities were limited. But today, everything has changed. Information is everywhere, competition is global, and the people who win are not the ones who follow instructions. They are the ones who teach themselves faster than everyone else. And if you're not one of them, you are already behind. That might sound harsh, but it's real. Because right now, while you're thinking about whether you should start learning something new, someone else has already started, already failed, already adjusted, and is already improving. That's the gap. And that gap doesn't stay small. It grows every single day. You were taught that education has a timeline. Go to school, pass exams, get a degree, and then you're done. That's the biggest lie you've ever been sold. Because the moment you stop learning is the moment you start declining. The world does not pause for you. Industries evolve, technology advances, strategies change, and if your knowledge stays the same, your value drops. It's not personal, it's just reality. And in a world where value determines everything, your income, your opportunities, your influence, falling behind in knowledge means falling behind in life now. Here's where things get interesting. The same system that limits most people actually gives an advantage to those who wake up. Because while the majority are waiting to be told what to do, a small percentage have figured out that self-education is the real game. They don't wait for permission. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They don't need someone to guide them step by step. They take control. They decide what they need to learn, and they go after it aggressively. And that's why they dominate. Think about it. Every skill that pays well today, whether it's business, communication, marketing, technology, investing, most of it isn't mastered in a classroom. It's learned through curiosity, through action, through real-world exposure. The people at the top didn't get there because they followed a curriculum. They got there because they built their own. They asked better questions. They searched for answers. They experimented, failed, adjusted, and kept going. That's self-education. And that's why it's a superpower, because when you can teach yourself anything, you are no longer limited. You don't have to rely on anyone. You don't have to wait for opportunities. You create them. You see a gap in the market, you learn what's needed, and you move. You see a skill that's valuable, you study it, practice it, and turn it into income. You see people ahead of you, you analyze them, learn from them, and close the gap. That's power. Real power, but let's be honest, most people won't do this. Not because they can't, but because it requires something they're not used to: discipline. It's easy to sit in a classroom and be told what to learn. It's easy to follow a structure someone else created. But when you're responsible for your own education, there are no deadlines, no teachers, no external pressure. It's just you. And that's where most people fail. They wait until they feel like it. They say they'll start tomorrow. They consume information passively without applying it. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Self-education doesn't work like that. It's not about motivation. It's about commitment. It's about deciding that every single day, no matter what, you will learn something that moves you forward. Even when you're tired. Even when you're busy. Even when you don't see immediate results. Because the results don't come instantly. They compound. One day of learning doesn't change your life. But 1 year of daily learning, that changes everything. And here's the part most people underestimate. What you learn shapes how you think. And how you think shapes how you act. And how you act determines your entire life. So when you invest in learning, you're not just gaining information. You're upgrading your mindset. You start seeing opportunities where others see problems. You start making decisions based on knowledge instead of emotion. You become sharper, faster, more aware. And that's what separates average people from exceptional ones. Look at anyone who has built something significant, and you'll notice a pattern. They are constantly learning, not because they have to, but because they understand the advantage it gives them. They read, they listen, they observe, they ask questions. They treat learning like a daily necessity, not an occasional activity. And over time, that obsession with growth becomes their edge. Now compare that to the average person. They wake up, Go through the same routine, consume entertainment, repeat the same conversations, and go to sleep without gaining anything new. Day after day, week after week, year after year. And then they wonder why their life hasn't changed. But how can it? If your knowledge stays the same, your results will too. This is why self-education is the new superpower. Because in a world where most people are stagnant, growth makes you stand out immediately. It puts you ahead faster than anything else. And the best part, it's accessible to everyone. You don't need money to start. You don't need connections. You don't need a special background. All you need is the willingness to learn and the discipline to stay consistent. But understand this, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. You will be distracted. You will be tempted to waste time. You will feel like it's not working fast enough. That's part of the process. The difference is, those who succeed don't stop. They keep going even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's boring, even when it feels like no one is watching. Because they know something others don't, that every piece of knowledge they gain is an investment in their future. And one day, it all starts to show. The conversations you have become different. The way you think becomes sharper. The opportunities you attract become bigger. And suddenly, people start asking how you did it. They think it happened overnight. They don't see the hours you spent learning, the effort you put in, the consistency you maintained. But you know it was built day by day, decision by decision. So the question is simple. Are you going to rely on a system that was never designed to make you exceptional? Or are you going to take control and build your own path? Because the moment you decide to educate yourself every single day, everything changes. Your mindset changes, your actions change, your results change. And once that shift happens, there's no going back. Most people think learning is something you do when you have extra time. That's the first mistake. Because if you only learn when it's convenient, you will almost never learn at all. Life doesn't slow down for you. Responsibilities pile up, distractions multiply, and before you know it, the day is gone. That's why the difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck comes down to one thing: systems. Not motivation, not inspiration, not bursts of energy, but daily habits that run automatically whether you feel like it or not. Because here's the truth about the human brain. It adapts to whatever you repeatedly do. If you spend hours scrolling, your brain becomes trained for distraction. If you spend time learning, your brain becomes trained for focus and growth. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your habits. And if your habits don't include daily learning, then growth will always feel like a struggle instead of a natural part of your life. Right now, your day is already full of habits. You wake up, check your phone, go through routines, eat, work, relax, sleep. Most of these actions happen without thinking. That's the power of habits. They remove the need for decision making. But here's the problem. Most people have built habits that keep them comfortable, not habits that make them better. And comfort is the enemy of progress. Turning your life into a learning machine doesn't mean adding something massive or overwhelming. It means taking control of what you already do and redirecting it. It means replacing mindless consumption with intentional input. It means turning wasted time into invested time. Because the reality is, you don't need more time. You need better use of the time you already have. Think about how much time disappears every day. Minutes lost on social media. Hours spent watching content that adds no value, moments wasted waiting, sitting, doing nothing. Now imagine if even a fraction of that time was redirected toward learning. Not random information, not useless facts, but skills and knowledge that actually move your life forward. That's where everything changes, but here's where most people get it wrong. They try to do too much too fast. They get excited, they decide to learn for hours every day, and within a week, they burn out. Consistency dies, and they fall back into old patterns. That's why the key isn't intensity, it's sustainability. Small, consistent actions repeated daily will always outperform short bursts of extreme effort, because learning compounds. One day of effort might feel insignificant, but when you repeat that effort every single day, it builds. Knowledge stacks on knowledge. Skills sharpen over time. What was once difficult becomes easy. What once felt confusing becomes clear. And eventually, you reach a point where you are operating at a completely different level than before. Imagine this. If you improved your knowledge by just 1% every day by the end of the year, you wouldn't be slightly better. You would be transformed. That's the power of compounding. But it only works if you stay consistent. Miss a day, and it's not a disaster. Miss weeks, and the system breaks. That's why daily habits matter. They keep the momentum alive. Now understand this. Your environment plays a huge role in your habits. If your surroundings are filled with distractions, your habits will reflect that. If your environment supports learning, your habits will align with growth. This is why successful people are intentional about what they expose themselves to. They control their inputs because they know inputs determine outputs. What you watch, what you listen to, what you read, who you talk to. All of it shapes your thinking. If you're constantly consuming low-value content, your mind becomes cluttered. Focus weakens. Discipline fades. But when you fill your mind with valuable information, your thinking sharpens. You start connecting ideas. You become more aware. You begin to see patterns others miss. And here's something powerful. Learning doesn't have to be separate from your life. It can be integrated into everything you do. While others listen to music without thinking, you can listen to something that teaches you. While others scroll aimlessly, you can read something that expands your understanding. While others complain about being busy, you can use small moments to grow. This is how you build a learning machine. You don't wait for the perfect time. You make every moment count. You turn idle time into productive time. You stack learning into your routine until it becomes automatic. And once it becomes automatic, it no longer feels like effort. It feels like who you are, but there's another level to this. It's not just about consuming information. It's about engaging with it. Because passive learning is weak. You can watch videos, read books, listen to podcasts all day, but if you don't think about what you're learning, if you don't question it, if you don't apply it, it won't stick. Real learning happens when you interact with the information, when you challenge ideas, when you connect them to your own experiences, when you test them in real situations. That's when knowledge becomes understanding. That's when it becomes part of you. And this is where most people fall short. They consume endlessly, but apply nothing. They feel productive because they're taking in information, but their lives don't change. Because information without action is just noise. It feels good in the moment, but it has no lasting impact. Turning habits into a learning machine means closing that gap. It means taking what you learn and doing something with it immediately. Even if it's small, even if it's imperfect, because action reinforces learning, it strengthens memory, it builds confidence, and it turns knowledge into real skill. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might struggle to stay consistent. You might get distracted. That's normal. Habits take time to build, but the more you repeat them, the easier they become. What once required effort starts to feel natural, and eventually you reach a point where not learning feels strange. That's when you know the system is working. When growth is no longer something you force, but something you do automatically. When your default behavior shifts from consumption to improvement. When every day, without thinking, you are becoming better than you were before. And once that happens, everything else starts to change. Your confidence increases because you know more. Your decisions improve because you understand more. Your opportunities expand because you can offer more. And it all started with something simple. Daily habits. Most people underestimate how powerful this is because they're looking for quick results. They want immediate success, instant transformation. But real growth doesn't work like that. It's slow, steady, and often invisible in the beginning. But if you stay consistent, it becomes undeniable, because while others are stuck in the same routines, you are evolving. While others are repeating the same mistakes, you are learning from them. While others are waiting for change, you are creating it. And over time, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. So the real question isn't whether you can learn every day. The real question is whether you're willing to build the habits that make it inevitable. There's a hard truth most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. And that truth is this: knowledge alone will not change your life. You can read every book, watch every video, listen to every expert, and still remain exactly where you are. Because information by itself has no power. It feels powerful. It gives you a sense of progress. It makes you believe you're improving. But if that knowledge never leaves your mind and enters your actions, it is completely useless. And this is where the majority of people get stuck. They become addicted to learning without ever evolving. You've seen it before. People who can explain everything but achieve nothing. People who know the theory inside out but never take a single step forward. They can tell you how business works, how fitness works, how success works, but their own life doesn't reflect any of it. That's not intelligence. That's hesitation disguised as preparation. And the longer you stay in that state, the more dangerous it becomes, because you start confusing knowing with doing. The reality is simple. Execution is the only thing that creates results. Not ideas, not plans, not intentions, but action. And action is where fear shows up. Because when you move from learning to doing, there's no hiding anymore. You can fail. You can make mistakes. You can look inexperienced. And most people would rather stay comfortable in their minds than risk discomfort in reality. But understand this. Every expert you admire, every successful person you look up to, they all started at zero. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They didn't wait until they had perfect knowledge. They took what they knew at the time and they acted on it. Imperfectly, consistently, relentlessly. And through that process, they learned faster than those who were still thinking about starting, because real learning doesn't happen when you consume information. It happens when you test it, when you apply it, when you see what works and what doesn't. That's when knowledge becomes experience. And experience is what builds confidence, skill, and results. Think about it like this. If you read about swimming for years, but never enter the water, you're still not a swimmer. You might understand techniques, you might know the theory, but the moment you step into the pool, reality hits. The same applies to every area of life. You don't become skilled by knowing, you become skilled by doing, and here's where it gets even more important. Action creates feedback. When you apply what you learn, you get immediate responses from the real world. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But every outcome teaches you something. Every mistake sharpens your understanding. Every failure brings clarity. And that feedback loop is what accelerates growth. But if you never act, you never receive feedback. And without feedback, you stay stuck in the same level of understanding forever. That's why two people can learn the same thing, but one moves ahead while the other stays behind. One applies and adapts. The other overthinks and delays. Now, let's address the biggest excuse people use. They say they're waiting for the right time, the right moment, the perfect condition. But that moment doesn't exist. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be risks. There will always be reasons to wait. And if you keep waiting, you will never move, because action creates clarity, not the other way around. You don't think your way into confidence, you act your way into it. You don't plan your way into success, you execute your way into it. And every step you take reduces fear, builds momentum, and brings you closer to where you want to be at the same time. You have to understand that taking action doesn't mean being reckless. It means being intentional. It means learning something and immediately asking yourself, how can I use this? Where can I apply this? What is one step I can take right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, but now, because the faster you move from learning to action, the faster you grow. You shorten the gap between knowledge and results. You turn information into transformation. And over time, that habit becomes your biggest advantage. Most people operate in cycles of delay. They learn, they feel motivated, they plan, and then they stop. Days pass, motivation fades, and nothing changes. But when you build the habit of immediate action, you break that cycle. You create momentum. And momentum is powerful, because once you have it, it becomes easier to keep going than to stop. There's also another layer to this. Application forces you to focus on what actually matters. When you're only consuming information, everything feels important. Every idea seems valuable. But when you start applying, you quickly realize that not everything works. You learn to filter. You learn to prioritize. You learn to focus on what delivers results. That's how you develop real understanding. Not by memorizing everything, but by identifying what actually makes a difference. And that level of clarity only comes through action. Now, here's something most people don't expect. When you start applying knowledge, you will feel uncomfortable. You will feel uncertain. You will question yourself. That's part of the process. Growth is not supposed to feel easy. It's supposed to challenge you. It's supposed to push you beyond what you're used to, but that discomfort is a signal. It's a sign that you're moving forward. It's a sign that you're doing something most people avoid. And if you can learn to embrace that feeling instead of running from it, you gain an edge that is impossible to compete with, because while others stay in their comfort zones, you are expanding yours. While others avoid risk, you are learning from it. While others stay the same, you are evolving, and over time, this creates a massive gap. Not because you are smarter, not because you are more talented, but because you are willing to act. You are willing to take what you know and turn it into something real. That's the difference between average and exceptional. Average people consume. Exceptional people execute. Average people wait. Exceptional people move. Average people talk about what they will do. Exceptional people do it. And once you understand this, everything changes. You stop chasing information for the sake of it. You start seeking knowledge with purpose. You focus on what you can use, not just what you can learn. And every day becomes an opportunity to improve, not just to understand, because at the end of the day, your life is not shaped by what you know. It's shaped by what you do with what you know. And if you're not applying your knowledge, you are leaving your potential unused, so the choice becomes clear. You can continue learning without action and stay exactly where you are. Or you can take control, apply what you know, and start building real results. Everything you've heard comes down to a simple but brutal truth. Your future is being decided by what you do every single day. Not someday, not when you feel ready, not when conditions are perfect, but now. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is not a mystery anymore. It's built on three things: your willingness to take control of your own education, your ability to turn daily habits into a system of growth, and your courage to apply what you learn in the real world. Because at the end of it all, nobody is stopping you except your own inaction. The knowledge is available. The opportunities are there. The only question is whether you're disciplined enough to use them. While most people continue to wait, delay, and distract themselves, a small group chooses a different path. They learn every day, they improve every day, and they act every day. And over time, they become impossible to compete with. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need permission. You need consistency. You need focus. You need the decision that no matter what happens, you will not let a single day pass without becoming better than you were yesterday. Because once you commit to that standard, everything begins to shift. Your mindset sharpens. Your confidence grows. Your actions become more intentional. And slowly, the life you once thought was out of reach starts becoming your reality. So from this moment forward, the choice is yours. Stay where you are, repeating the same patterns, hoping something changes, or take control. Educate yourself daily, build unstoppable habits, and execute without hesitation. Because the version of you that wins is the one that starts now.